Assalamu alaikum. My name is Saira Hayati and I'm here at the Malaysian Gazette. We have a podcast for you that you are going to be overwhelmed and excited by because it's all about really interesting conversations and topics. But today I'm going to start off with telling you a bit about myself so you can understand my background and my history and how I've landed in this chair, because it's a bit of a surprise to me to be even here, and I'm going to share all of that with you. So let's start off my journey. First of all, my position when I was in the UK in my 20s, and women in business, women in life in general, you have your struggles, I know. And when you are exposed and you have culture and you have clashes and you are in a place that is so different to your home life, there are all sorts of problems, all sorts of challenges that you're going to face. So in my 20s, I did marry very young and I had a child. So I had to drive myself and I had to inspire myself and I had to motivate myself, because actually I came from a broken home where I was supporting my mother and I had a child, and I was actually at that point a single parent, because back in the day your parents would connect you in relationships to like an arranged marriage. And my arranged marriage was in Pakistan, back home. I'm British. I'm culturally molded to a way that is a complete world apart to the family and the lifestyle and everything. And to be fair, travel wasn't even that deep. We've traveled maybe to nearby countries for holidays, but you're not feeling what you should do if you are if you're living somewhere. So my culture was Western, his culture was Eastern, and we then kind of collided. Along comes my first child, and then comes parents' breakup. And so that was probably what drove me the hardest to achieve, to succeed. But the difficulties along the way were things like, you study and you educate at 20 or 18, you're studying, your focus isn't about marriage, it's not about children, it's not about making money. Your thoughts go into what you're doing as a child still. But culture and parents, and they make the right decisions based on their thought processes. So I was now embarking on something that was completely new, uncertainties, and I rose to it. And I think that's the difference. You have to look at where you are, and your personality will come through. So in my 20s, a lot of my learning happened from the outset, and I was running straight away. And I feel like I actually haven't stopped that running. And there's probably some challenges mentally that I have to address, and you kind of do that as you're going along. But what I'm saying is, it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing to fit in. It's not a bad thing to experience these kind of experiences that you might call a hardship, you might call it a challenge, but it makes you or it breaks you. And that's where you have to stand and you have to rise to it. So in my 20s, I didn't actually educate. My education level went to A level. And after A level, I was having to work, but I wanted to succeed. So I self-studied. You can take material and you can learn it yourself. And then in those days, there was no internet. You didn't have something that you could refer to. So you had to seek out experience from other people. And most of it was achieved whilst I was working, because I entered the financial world. I entered property, I entered insurance, and I was trying to balance home, child, parents, culture, everything. Anyway, I'm not going to harp on about the negatives too much, because I feel that it's a maker. It makes you. It doesn't. You have to focus on the positives of what you've got. So education, I studied myself while I was working. I worked in a bank for a large corporate in the UK, and that taught me quite a lot, because when you work for these bigger corporations, you see the magnitude of structure at its best. Because banking and finance is what makes the world go round, actually. You could have a job teaching, you could have a job in retail, but really what makes you stronger financially is to understand about money. And I think it was the best place that I could have started my life there was so much to experience, not just as I wasn't at the bottom because I'd already qualified at this point. So I entered as a financial advisor. I was giving advice in my mid-20s on investments, on pensions, on finance, general banking. And one of the biggest qualities I would say that I had was I didn't lock myself up in my office. I came out and I mixed in with everyone, whether you were a cashier, whether you were a customer, whether you were the cleaner. I was with you and I was talking because that's what I'm good at, okay? I can talk to everyone and anyone, and I'm intrigued and I'm interested and I want to know about you. And all of that information was absorbing into me because at that age, you are like a sponge. You can see things, you can analyze things, and your listening skills. But also, you know, when you're young, you're a puppy. You have energy. You have less discipline, let's say, because that refines and reforms you at a later date. But when you're working for a corporate, they kind of make you, they mold you into what they want you to be. You're part of the little ant team that has to deliver the goods. But it is still beneficial because they teach you things like targets and key performance indicators. They teach you team building. They teach you so much. So I learned a huge amount of my knowledge that supported me later on in life came from doing 7 years in a bank. So moving fast forward on, I decided after the bank, I'd married again. I had children. And lifestyle doesn't work working for banks. So I decided that I am going to open my own business where I can strike a balance. I've missed something out. Prior to working in the bank, I was working for an estate agent, and that's where I qualified. And the estate agent didn't want me. I was too young. I was inexperienced, didn't have life skills. But I pushed and I pushed and I pushed, and eventually they gave me the job. And I learned about property. I learned about valuations, I learned about marketing, and again, start at the bottom, worked my way up, decided at that point that I need to go into the bank because I was going to marry, and lifestyle of an estate agent doesn't suit that married ideal. You know, the wife, the children, and then working long hours. It just doesn't balance. So I shifted into banking, and banking was that respected role, you know, where you look the part, you play the part, and you have that respect in the community. Parents happy. People give you this respect because they think that you work in a bank. After fulfilling those 7 years, I enjoyed myself, but my heart was in property. My heart was in helping others. And the trouble with working for corporates is your wings are tied. You don't have the freedom to evolve. You don't have the freedom to develop yourself and really know what your potential is. And that's why I left the banking world and I started out with a small estate agency business with a view of offering finance mortgages in the UK, because that would be the way that I could help communities, help people get into homes, either through renting or through buying. So business went really, really well, but business needs time. It needs dedication. It needs commitment. It needs support. And how did I go about that? Will probably be a lengthier topic to discuss at a later date, and what drove me, motivated me, and inspired me. So the estate agency was doing very well, but then we hit a crash. There was a market crash and a credit crunch. So banks were now no longer lending. Prior to that, they were throwing money at people, which was fantastic for me because I could deliver finance to people very, very easily, and I helped everyone and anyone that came through my door, and that built me a reputation. And the reputation was, if anyone can, Saira can. And so that reputation established itself. Also, people that were in difficulty, that needed somewhere to rent. Because in the UK you have regulation, you have to follow certain rules. Some people didn't fit those molds, and I was in a position of power where I had houses, I had stock, I had to assess people myself using my banking experience to give them a home. And it was just enjoyable. It was fun. It was great running business. I had best friends. I built networks. And I learned a lot whilst I was running business. That business ran for a good 12 years. And whilst that was happening, I was having children. And had a really fantastic network around me at the time. And then moving forward, I decided that I wanted to sell that business because there were so many changes happening in the UK. So we're fast forwarding to around my 30s, I would say, where the markets were changing and regulation was changing. So I thought, you know what, it's time to get out of this business and use what I've learned here to implement something else. So I did. I moved on to another business. At the same time, I met lots of inspiring people. And in the UK, I will say that there's a lot of hardworking Indians. And this Indian guy, I remember it really well. He said to me, "How many houses have you got, Saira?" And I said, "One." And he said, "Why have you got one? You're arranging mortgages for everybody else and they're buying investment properties. Why have you only got one? Go and buy some houses." And I was still very in my prime and naive. So I just took the instruction from an elder and went off and did what I was doing for other people for myself. And I have to say that that was the best thing that I did. I bought property. Go back 10, 15, 20 years, buying property was easier, and it was I think in any country that you're in, buying property is always going to have a long-term benefit to you because the house values always increase and there's so much more that you can do from that land ownership or the property ownership, because when you've got a roof over your head or you're renting the house out, there's always money to be made. So I was constantly running. Remember I said in the beginning that when I faced my initial inspirations challenges, it started that running off. Well, I was continuously running and it didn't stop. And I wanted to make money, not because I wanted lavish, not because I wanted lifestyle, because I was continuously measuring myself up. We always aim to please our parents. We always want to give the best that we can. And it's never usually for ourselves. It's majority of the time women do it for others. It's either for their parents or it's for their kids or it's for other people, because naturally we are programmed to be givers. So I was doing this, I was making money, I was buying properties, and then that led me into running my own financial brokerage. But I was going to take it easy, smaller scale of business, easier to manage, and it would be just me. And now I'm doing it because my children have grown up and I want to teach my children something. I had 5 children, of which my eldest is 28, and then I had 3 sons, and I have my youngest who is 8. So 20 years of my life have been servicing children or family. And I don't have any regrets. The only regrets that you will have is that when you're balancing that many children with your business and your life and all of this giving, you are going to make some sacrifices along the way. And we could talk about those at another date. And if there's any questions, then I can always answer them. So, you know, you've now got to the point where you've got these children. Life was fantastic. It was enjoyable. I had a great time. But the drive and the running just continues, because in life, you should never be giving up on anything. You should just be aspiring to do something better and open the doors to new challenges. So where did I get to? I think we've done the 20s, we've done the 30s, and what's missing? There's so much that I could tell you about my journey and what I did. The overview is business, children, and you have to still, within that, focus on yourself and your health, because none of it is going to grow without you as the main core key person in it all. So how did I go about that? I actually did it unknowingly, because my time was so restricted. People often ask me, how do you fit everything in? And it was because of time management. So you would find me in the gym in the morning from 5:30 until 6:30. And that was the only time, because everybody else was asleep. That was the only time that I could actually do this. And this happened pre the 24-hour gyms, because they've only just really been a thing. Prior to that, I had to find my own way on my own. And I used to go outside for a jog. And if it was rain or snow, it didn't matter. I was out there. That did damage me a little bit, because unbeknown to me, I had a condition in my spine called degenerative disc disease. And because I was out pounding the pavements, my discs were squashing. And I was completely unaware of it until the point one of my discs split. Contents came out and it gave me a sciatic pain, numbness in my left leg. Fortunately, at the time I was working for the bank, they had private medical insurance. I went to get an MRI scan and they told me what the problem is. And they said to me, you are going to have an operation on your back. So you can imagine how scary that is, because your back is everything. You stand, you walk, you do on that one spine backbone that keeps you upright. So now they're telling me that there's a 50-50 chance in this operation that you could end up paralyzed from the waist down. So now I have to decide, do I have the operation or do I live a life of steroid injections and medication, and then your whole lifestyle changes? So the option I had was 50% chance paralysis, 50% chance success, or I have to live a life in pain on steroids. So said my prayers and met the consultant, and I had the operation. And it was a success. He was very well known because it was private. You had the best of care compared to the government support that you have in the UK. And I was really fortunate, and I'm grateful that I had that. The next challenge came is that when they operate on your back, your muscle memory is wiped clean. You don't know how to walk. Could you imagine being in your late 20s and you can't walk, and you've got a business, and you've got children, and you've got still, you're supporting your parents? So again, you have to mindset, and physio came in, and it was steps at a time. And this doesn't just teach you about your health. It teaches you to reset in life. You're just in a position now where you learned how to walk, probably can't even remember how you learned how to walk. And now you're in a compass state of mind where you will acknowledge each step. So physio comes in, and the first step is getting out of bed. The next step is getting to the door. The next step is walking down the corridor. The next steps are taking a walk out in the gardens. And gradually I started to walk again, and I stayed in hospital maybe for about 10 days, but the rehabilitation took 3 months. But because even though the bottom end of me wasn't functioning as well as it should do, this upper half was still going, and my brain was still functioning, and my mouth is still going. So it didn't stop me. The doctors said take 3 months off, take 6 months off. But because of my fitness, I could say, because of my mind, I didn't take very long to recover. I still took the time out to make sure I was looking after myself health-wise. But I was back on my feet. Alhamdulillah, I'm happy about that. I'm grateful to everybody that was around that was supporting me at the time. But it's one of those challenges in life. You think that you're going to be moving forward. You build these structures and these strengths, but there's always knockbacks. There's always setbacks. But what do you do with them? You can either sit and wallow, or you can get up and you can do something about it. Because in your 20s, you don't want to be in a wheelchair. You don't want to be incapable or dependent. You want to have what you had before as a fully functioning adult that's capable of doing anything at a whim. Your choice, your decision, you can do. So that attitude really helped develop me, and that experience helped me. And I think everything happens in your life to teach you something. So rather than focusing on the negatives, I was on the positives. So we came back to this health situation. And since then until now, I am motivated to make sure one thing that Mr. Fraser told me, and he said, maintain weight. So you can imagine, as a woman, that's a natural challenge anyway, where your constantly appearance is measured. Especially in the Western world, there's always there's marketing and preferences and ideals, and so with weight, that also became another area that I wanted to learn, and I constantly strive to feed myself with more knowledge. So I actually studied this personal trainer's course. I didn't take the exam. I just studied it. I did the material. I should have taken the exam. I should have handed in that coursework. And then I could have handed a certificate to somebody to say that I'm now capable. But I wasn't out to please anybody else. It's for myself. And learning personal training, learning about fitness, learning about health. My mother taught me all about food because she was diagnosed with diabetes. She was also a very hardworking woman. Her background, my mother's mother came from Kabul. And my mother is probably the biggest inspiration for me, as she didn't have the opportunities that I had because she came to the UK in the late 60s, couldn't speak any English, found herself a job. Eventually, she opened a business and she had 6 children. But she had that drive. She had the energy. She had everything that I have delivered today, and I've achieved simply more because I had the network and I had the support that maybe my mum didn't have, and she could have done so much more with her life. But she's still happy, she's content, and she is still active today. But the main thing is the brain that she gave, that hunger she gave, the drive, what can you call it, the fearless attitude came from her. She strived in a new country, almost similar to the way that my life is, but without even the language. You know, I have the advantage here that English is spoken widely around the whole of Malaysia, and your vocabulary is comprehensive. She's come from only one language into a Western world where actually you're not accepted because you're culturally different. You look different. And in the UK, it was not welcomed, not the same way that I've been welcomed here. So she had other challenges when she was doing what she was doing. So bringing back into myself, my drive, my motivation, my abilities came from my mother. My health hazards along the way that I've learnt helped me to reset, refocus. My choices that I made in business and in life were due to being a single mother for some time. So you have to have something that puts you in a place to drive you. And on top of this, success came, but success comes from you not giving up, from you having the right attitude and mindset. And then that brings me here. So I ended up in Malaysia for a number of reasons, and I'm going to talk about that separately on another show. But for now, just so that you understand the basics of how this plant was grown and what made me the person that I am today, this history is really important. And anybody out there that's listening that wants to, as at the beginning of their journey, I hope that you can take something from it. I hope you can feel and listen to what I've experienced, and it will give you something to keep you going. And that running is you keeping, the wheel has to keep turning. It never stops, and you shouldn't ever stop it from turning. We think we want to retire. We think we want that easy life. We think we want to be on a beach every day with a book and go swim and enjoy and relax. But that isn't what a human being is for. We're not made to just sit and do nothing, because we were created as this amazing, intelligent creation. And there's so much more to yourself that you won't know unless you drive yourself and open the doors. So corporate world, business world, parenting, marriage, culture. I'm sure that you all have experiences that are similar to mine, and you can take something from what I've explained. Moving forward now, I'm here. And as much as I thought that this was going to be my retirement journey, I can tell you it's not, because I'm in Malaysian Gazette and I'm now opening doors myself, but people are opening doors for me that are bringing me into environments and scenes where I think I can still give back. And I think life is all about doing exactly that, is giving back to people around you, because you feel the rewards of that. You feel the satisfaction as a human being. You will feel that. And life in itself is never simple. Even today, what I'm seeing and experiencing here, and being somebody from a completely different makeup and a completely different background, I'm still learning and I'm still absorbing everything that's happening around me. But because Malaysia is so vast, actually, there is so much to see and do apart from the country itself, the people, the culture. I'm observing, and that's one of the things that I do well. I'll stand back and I'll observe. And once I've made my observations, I'll make some analysis, and then I will just utilize everything that's around me to give back. That is what life is about, giving back in every form, whether you're doing it physically, whether you're doing it from your wisdom, your experience, and your knowledge. You are giving back, and generations will continue. And there are influences everywhere. We need to give to a generation as much as we can that will influence them in a positive way to create that next generation of capable and strong human beings who can set the way again for that next generation. And learn from the previous generation. So this is what I'm getting at with what I'm saying. There's so much that you can learn from life and people, but environments matter. They really do matter, because being in the UK is a land, as they say, of opportunity. You can do everything that you want to do, however you want to do it. I think I'm running out of time now, so I am going to wrap up. But if there's anything else that you want to discuss or talk about, you're more than welcome to ask questions, and I can unfold more topics. I've covered it off in about 30 minutes, but and I've done my best to give you everything that I can, but the chances are I've gone around the fence and through the garden and given you overviews of things. And later on, I'll probably come back and go, oh, hang on, I forgot to tell them about this, or I forgot to tell them about that, because to simplify it into 30 minutes doesn't give you the time. And maybe, if I've sat and wrote a book or talked to ChatGPT, I might be able to thicken it out and help you see the bigger picture, so that you can take whatever you want from me and utilize it to your advantage. So I want to do the best that I can to give out to the generation using what I've learned in the UK and what I'm going to apply here whilst I'm in Malaysia. I aim to be here as long as I can. Life's journeys take you into all sorts of different directions. You don't know where you're going to be tomorrow. But for now, I'm here, and my purpose is to serve and help you understand why I chose to be in Malaysia and what I find so fascinating about being amongst the Malaysians, being in this side of the world, because the UK is 14 hours. But not only is it a 14-hour difference, there is a big difference between Malaysia and the UK. But with my background, being brought up by Pakistani parents, they also migrated from Afghanistan to Pakistan. And, there's always these shifts that people are doing. And I think there's so much to give and learn from these movements. And I hope that what I've taken from them, the culture that I had, and then that Western upbringing can be applied in a positive way while I have my stay here in Malaysia. So that's me done for today, and I hope you've taken something from it. This show is called Unfiltered with the Malaysian Gazette, where we will share and give you as much as we can that's interesting, that's exciting, but completely unfiltered. And that's a wrap from me today. I hope you appreciated it. I hope you enjoyed it. Keep watching.